Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? All right, today's video. I saw this accident happen during the week, but no one was really concerned about it. And I thought that was kind of interesting myself. I was like, what's going on? 13-year-old kid, June 21st, around 6 p.m. at Disneyland Resort, 13-year-old kid just gets up out of the boat, stands off the boat, tries to jump into another one, and falls all the way down the drop, hitting every louver on the way down that thing. That must have really hurt. Kids really lucky to be alive. But what's more even interesting about that is that Disney's not saying a thing about it. In fact, they just recently came out and said the kid's not even going to get banned from the park. They're not doing anything. That's really interesting. And I want to talk about it. Let's get into it.
Now get ready. Here we go.
All right, if this is your first time here, welcome. Glad you made it to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. I got plenty of them. All right, so today's video, Tiana's broke down adventure over there at Disneyland Resort in California. Kid jumps out of the boat, gets to the side of the rock, falls off, trying to jump into the next boat. Parents weren't around. I'm not trying to blame the parents here. The parents basically said the kid was effing around. Basically effed around and found out, right? So it was kind of interesting. That's the accident. I don't really want to get too much into the accident because it is what it is. It's done. It's over. Luckily, he wasn't killed. Kudos to that. Luckily, he's fine. Just some minor, like some scratches and cuts and stuff, which is, man, that's great for falling down a drop like that with metal louvers underneath it. Those things could really hurt. A louver is just a piece of steel welded to the trough to give the waterfall a ripple effect on the way down. It's a water effect, essentially. Anyways, so I wanted to look at this video and I wanted to say, well, what can Disney do to prevent this? So then I saw recently, Disney's basically like, we're not going to do anything about it. Well, they're not going to retaliate against the child or the family for what happened. Okay, and even though people have been like, this is a pretty traumatic experience for those who saw it, they said something about people were leaving the park after it happened. I don't know how you determine that because people are constantly leaving the park. They're also constantly coming into the park. But anyways, so I was like, why is Disney not doing that? They're hiding something. They're hiding a secret. And then I thought about it and I'm like, that's what it is. I know the secret. They basically can't do anything about it. So at Disney World out in Florida, their Tiana's Broke Down adventure out there has a different style flume log. It's got a side-by-side seat with lap bars in it, right? But in California, they don't have those. They've got the single where you sit nose to tail with people. It can fit up to 7 people in the boat, but there is absolutely no restraint inside the vehicle. So I started thinking like, well, so what can Disney do about this in the future? And it's like, well, they can't really do anything. So why are they not trying to do anything to this kid? Say like, hey, you got a lifetime ban or something like that. You know, parks are quick to ban people these days. And I started thinking about it and I was like, well, wait a minute. They can't do anything about it. That's the bottom line. They can't do anything about it. So they're trying to sweep it underneath the rug, hoping it doesn't gain attention and forcing their hand to do something about it. So I started thinking, well, what would we actually be able to do about that? So let's look at this video. I want to look at what can you actually do to this situation to fix it for next time. Okay, so we got someone that got up and got out. First, knee-jerk reaction is install seatbelts. All right, so seatbelts, typically you put them together, click, you could take them apart, click. So what does that do? Well, if you want to get out of the log, you can still get out of the log. You simply just reach down, unbuckle it. It's a, now I'm not be spot on with these because I'm not great with the engineering terms for them, but I believe that's a class 1 restraint. It's basically just a kind of a reminder. If you try to stand up, it basically holds you there and says, hey, don't get up, but you can easily just click, undo the thing and get out. I think once you move up to the next class level 2 is when it requires somebody to basically unlock the restraint for you. This is what they did in Walt Disney World. You've got the double seat side by side with the lap bar that comes down. So seatbelts. Can you put seatbelts in there? You can. They have to be made out of plastic, though. You don't want to use fabric. I've used fabric seatbelts before in other water rides, 2 other water rides. They are really nasty. They are super nasty, and then they start getting stuff on people's clothes once they get old and worn out. People don't want to deal with that. So use plastic. That way it fights off all the chemicals and everything else that's inside the water. So it's a much cleaner environment. So now when you sit on these logs, like myself, when I sit down in any one of the intermediate seats, the front being the worst, back being the best, I barely have enough room to sit my body down on the inside. So what would that do if we had a seatbelt? Well, I'd have to sit down, then I'd have to find the seatbelt where it is, and I'd have to find it on both sides and then come up and extend it and buckle it. This being the typical Disney park, what do you got to do next? You got to come by, and the cast member's got to look down and check and make sure it's on. You got to tug on it to make sure it is in fact closed before you can go out. All right, that's going to slow the dispatch process down significantly. We're talking right now where you could probably dispatch a boat. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to say we could probably dispatch a boat every 20 seconds out of the ride. Probably a lot less than that, honestly. But you could dispatch a boat every 20 seconds. That's going to slow it way down. It's probably going to actually double the load time that it takes for people to get in, sit down, find their seatbelt, buckle it up. Not a great option. It's an option, not a great option, though. So if they were forced to go to like a Class 2 style restraint, where it is something that the guests can't undo on their own, they are going to have to, and I might be wrong on the classes. I'm not great with that stuff, honestly. Mechanic, right? Not engineer. So if you're going to go to that style, then you have to use a seatbelt like they use on a lot of other rides where it comes over and clicks into a base. And then in that base, it's got an electronic release on the inside. Would you use electronic? It's like, you could still use electronic. So you could do a seatbelt receiver. Everything can be encased in resin. You can use an electromagnetic unlock to pull the plunger down. It's probably going to get clogged up with stuff, debris, little things that are floating around inside the water. Probably going to get clogged up really easy, causing the downtime to go way up on the ride. You can release that inductively in the station, assuming you can get the log close enough to an inductive platform to actually energize the onboard circuit to release it. The other thing, way less effective, still doable, would be to use a mechanical release down there, but then you have to make a mechanical arm that comes up to hold the receiver where the seatbelt goes in. That's going to get in the way of people's legs, because I know when I sit there, my legs are right on the outside of the seat on both sides, pinned between the seat and the log. I don't fit really great into that thing, but there's people bigger than me that ride it as well. So space is absolutely at a premium, and doing this with somebody's legs right next to you is not going to be the best thing. So I really don't think belts are a good option here. So we can go to lap bars. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, wait a minute. If you're going to go to lap bars, why wouldn't you just grab the boats from Walt Disney World and put them in Disneyland? Well, the problem is the boats are too wide. Water rides are extremely reactive and dynamic. Any little tiny change will affect how a water ride works. So you really can't change them, because if you change one little tiny thing, it messes up every single thing. In this case, the boats over there at Tiana's Broke Down Adventure in Disney World is too wide. So the trough literally won't handle the boat, because as the boat tries to go around the corner, it'll basically chordal and it'll get stuck. Like the center of the boat will get stuck as you're trying to get a flat thing to go around a curve. It'll stick right in that center. So it's not really a good option to move those over. So what do we have to do? We have to take the existing boats. Disney's done this before, to put a lap bar or something else on the inside. And you're going to have to, again, severely reduce the capacity of the boat. You're going to have to do something like what they did with the Matterhorn bobsleds. Remember the Matterhorn bobsleds? Yeah, each sled, there's little two sleds put together, two cars put together to make a sled, however that terminology you want to work it is. Those things used to have, you could sit two people in the front, two people in the back, and then the next coach, two people in the front, two people in the back. So you had a total of 8 people that could fit on one of the sleds over there at the Matterhorn Mountain. And then when they redid them to this new style where you have the electronic seats and everything else in there, you could only fit 3 in the front and 3 in the back maximum. So you lost your capacity theoretically from 8 to 6. Not that bad. It probably actually increased their capacity because the amount of people that didn't want a lap seat with their partner or somebody else. Not everyone wants to lap seat these days. It's not great unless you're a parent with a little kid. Little kids lost that function, that had to raise the height requirement and everything else. All right, so take that flash forward, and it's like, can you do that with Tianas? Well, yeah, you can. If you took a log right now that can hold 7 people in it, and you said we're going to reduce it to 3, maybe 4 people in there. I really doubt 4. It's probably going to be 3. Once you go to 3, then you can, in fact, do something like install a lap bar, because now you have the space in front of you for the mechanism. You have to get your legs down low enough for it to clear it and come back down into the seat. Quite a pain in the butt. Again, it makes loading and unloading a little harder to do, but your main thing is you probably cut the capacity of the ride in half. Now, loading and unloading with lap bars isn't going to be that much of a problem. It's going to be a pretty easy in, a pretty easy out, but getting the lap bars to lock and unlock, there's going to be some actuators installed in the station, the mechanism through the side of the boat to mechanically release everything, and then they're going to have to monitor it to make sure that the lock is in fact down and closed and it can't be opened up while you're on the ride. Now, even that, most rides, you can still work your way out of that. We even go back to the Tianas over there in Florida again. Well, same exact thing. When the boats stack up and they start to sink, we've seen this before, right? People just shimmy over to the side, get out of the boat because it's sinking. I don't like being strapped into stuff that could sink, Doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Anyways, so there's still a possibility you can get out. So is there a permanent fix for this solution where you absolutely captive people inside the boat 100%? Yeah, but that involves going up to the next restraint level to make sure each one not only goes down, but it holds to the lap bar and it's probably a little bit pressed down on top of the thighs as well. Not great. I mean, you can go for hydraulic actuators. Once those things get crummy with all the water and everything else, maybe some hard water spots going past the seals of the hydraulic actuator, those seals are probably going to give out and they're going to leak. Now you have hydraulic fluid floating around the water, getting on people's clothing and people's eyes. You don't want that. You want to try to keep the hydraulics out of there. People say, well, you used hydraulics underwater before. A lot of ride systems that use hydraulics under the water are actually using the water from the ride as the hydraulic fluid. It's a low pressure system. It's only a couple hundred PSI, but they use the ride water in that system to move stuff around. Not high pressure, so it doesn't steam. It doesn't get so hot that it creates steam and vapes off of there. So that's really the solution that they have to deal with. It's like put full restraints on the log or don't do it at all. So I think Disney's response in this case is just they're trying to sweep it underneath the rug so they don't have to do anything at all. Now, if you're sitting there like, well, they need to do something about this, it's like, I'll step into their side on this one. It's like, do you? Do you really? How often does this happen? Well, we've seen events where people get out of the log and will start walking off of it. In fact, I've done videos on it before. So it's not that it never happens, but this is the first time someone has done this on the drop and then messed it up and fallen back inside. I understand the kid's mindset because the kid actually got out, I'm guessing, as the log went right over the top and started to level out. The kid probably hopped up, jumped off to the side, and was kind of like stuck there. And then is like, I'm going to get on the next boat and it'll be hilarious. Well, misplaced footing, everything is wet. When it's wet all the time, there's typically algae that grows and it makes it slicker than a button out there. So the kid probably went to go jump the other log, slipped, fell. Luckily, for this particular one, the cast members caught it and they saw it because those boats go, probably every less than 10 seconds. Probably every 7 or 8 seconds, a boat is going. If I think about that right, yeah, probably 7 to 10 seconds on there, a boat goes over. Now, the operations had hit the e-stop and shut the ride down. I imagine it was an e-stop, might have been a ride stop, I'm not sure. But anyways, they hit the stop and shut the ride off, which was great because once that kid fell down there, that was the timing, literally another 10 seconds, and it would have had probably a ton worth of boat coming down at 50 miles per hour on top of them. That for sure would have been a fatality down there, 100%. I don't doubt it. So really lucky on the timing of these things. Kudos to the cast members that saw it, quickly reacted, shut the thing off. Good job. Way to prevent stuff. Future use for the ride, it's like you could maybe see some belts pop up that is going to be the cheapest, easiest thing to do would be to put seatbelts on there. And it's going to require the least amount of everything. Unfortunately, it requires the most amount of loading and unloading time that will really slow things down and could make that hour-and-a-half wait that ride gets to even longer, which nobody is going to want. But not really sure how to deal with that other than a huge modification, which would be to bring more boats into the loading station to load more people to give you more time and still crank them out the other side. It might happen in the long-term plans. I don't think so. Redesigning the trough to fit a wider boat, don't think so as well. What you might get is an entirely new design boat. Something I'm thinking of, like where you sit down and maybe you have very small little paddles that simply just come down on the left and right. Maybe you could do something like that. Not sure. Imagineers are pretty good at figuring out how to put stuff into places where it shouldn't be. I'll give them that much, right? A lot of good stuff coming out of there. Currently at Disneyland, there are only 2 rides, well, 3 rides total, that run with no seatbelts whatsoever. The first one, hardly worth mentioning, but there it is. It's a small world. It's a small world, has no seatbelts on it whatsoever, and it is something that when the boats jam up, somebody could easily climb off. Even with them going at their normal speed, someone could still easily climb off. Not much of a deterrent there, but they have cameras watching them at all times. If they stop, if people were to get off, they stop the ride. It's the same exact thing. There's not too much hazard there. The next one up, Pirates of the Caribbean. Again, water ride, boat, going very slow. We're talking half the pace of walking here. You can get out and you can climb through the water. The water is only about knee deep in most of the attraction, and you can get on it there. Now, there's a lot of hidden spots in there. It's one of the reasons why Pirates of the Caribbean has infrared sensors lining both sides of the trough all the way around. And if it detects that the beam breaks, which means somebody has gotten out of their boat, it sends the ride into a ride stop and alerts the operators that, hey, despite you watching stuff, somebody has still gotten out of the boat. Now, that one's a little more dangerous because of the sheer weight of those vehicles, that if you were to get in front of one of those boats in between another one and it stops, it may seem really easy, like you could push them back and forth, but if you got out there and then caught one boat between another one and then piled a second and a third one up there, all those motors pushing forward, pushing that current forward against there, you might get a sustained injury, or worse, you could get trapped underneath one of them and drown. Of course, there's also parts like right next to the lift at the end of the ride on Pirates of the Caribbean, where the water is probably about 6 feet deep, 8 feet deep down there, where the lift has to come down and return, where the drive return wheels and stuff like that are underneath the water. So that's the deepest part of the ride right there. The last one is, of course, Tiana's Broke Down Adventure, where the height requirement is much higher. And it's one of the reasons, because you're sitting by yourself. It's got a steep drop. You have to be about your wits not to do something like what was done. So I think Disney did all the right precautions. The engineering was there. The history of the ride says it's not a problem. Occasionally things happen. People do weird things. So once one weird thing is done, does that mean you have to guard against it? Depends on what it is. Would it be ignorant for them to do nothing? Probably would be, but it might be something that you and I won't see. It might be something like we've added more cameras. We've added a person to sit there and watch them. I know there's a person at the base of that lift hill, and people have told me that there's other cast members sprinkled throughout the ride. Maybe there needs to be someone up on top somewhere. Not sure about that. But minor procedural changes can fix problems. That's typically what's done with a lot of minor accidents, little hiccups like this. A procedure change is typically the first thing that happens. It's like, we're going to change this procedure. We're going to add a camera. We're going to add some lighting. There might be a sign that pops up. The animatronic might sit there and actually tell you, it's broke. Sorry. But you never know what they can do. So we're going to see what Disney does about this. It sounds like they're not going to do anything about it, but that doesn't mean, just saying that they're not going to ban somebody doesn't mean that nothing's happening in the background to continue to evolve the safety of the ride to make sure everything is good to go. Those are all my thoughts. Of course, I don't have any inside track on this. No one's talking to me from the park or anything like that. But I just had this thought. I'm like, let's talk about what we could do to modify the ride to make it safer, if anything if possible. Not a lot of great options out there without completely redesigning a thing and making it into something that it's not. All right. Enough for this video. It was a quick one this week, I know. Like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff downstairs. It does help me out. And as always, stay off the air gates.